Look at a way of selecting a sample. So this is the most common way to select a sample. So this is called a simple random sample. It's abbreviated SRS. We say it has size n, which n just represents how many people are going to be in your sample. So if there's 31 of you in this class and I wanted to pick 4 of you, I would say n is equal to 4. It's just how many people are going to be in my sample. The idea behind an SRS is that each individual in the sample has an equally likely chance of being selected. So if I were to take all of your names and write them on a piece of paper, put them in a hat, and draw somebody out, you all have an equally likely chance of being selected. It's the same idea, except for if there were a lot of people, you wouldn't really want to do that. And it uses something called a table of random digits. So that's what we're going to look at next here is the random digit table. So this is called Table B in the back of your book, so you'll want to get that out. We'll definitely be using that for these notes and your book assignment here. So it's not on the very, very back cover, but if you turn one page over on page T-2, it says Table B at the top, Table B random digits. So essentially what this is it's just a long string of zeros and nines generated by a computer. So if you look at the table here, here's a chunk of it. The lines over here are just the way the table is organized, so they may say use line 101, use line 111. So it's just kind of where they tell you to make your starting point at. If they don't tell you a line to start at, you can pick whichever one. Some people like to pick 101 every time. It doesn't really matter. So the numbers are organized into chunks of 5. So that's just kind of to keep it spaced out so you don't lose your place when you're looking through the numbers. So you read it this way. So if I get to the end of line 101 and I need to keep going, I just go down to 102. If I'm done with that one, I just keep moving down like that. So to find a simple random sample using a random digit table, we have 2 steps here. All right. The first one is to label. So every individual gets assigned a number, and all numbers must be the same length. So if I were labeling you guys, I would start with 1, 2, 3, and go all the way through 31. When they say that all numbers must be the same length, though, if somebody's number 1 and somebody else is number 25, 1 is only 1 digit long, 25 is 2 digits long. So everybody has to have a 2-digit number. So what I'll do, instead of making that first person 1, I'll make the first person 0, 1. So the second person would be 0, 2, then 0, 3, and then so on. So everybody has 2 digits. If my sample had more than 100 people, I would start with 0, 0, 1 to get 3 digits for that first person. The next step is to use your table to select your sample, and we'll look at how that is done here. So example, I want to select a random sample of 2 individuals from the following list of people. So notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people in this sample, or in this population, and I'm going to select 2 of them. So my first step, I'm going to label each person alphabetically, so they are already in alphabetical order here, and I'm going to do it 0, 1 through 12, because they all have to have the same number of digits. So the last person will be 12, the first person would be 0, 1, and then everything in between. So I'm going to use line 131. No particular reason behind that. Just if they were giving me a line to start with, they may say use line 131. So what you want to do in the back of your book, go to line 131. So if I look here at line 131, and since I'm looking at 2-digit numbers because I labeled people 0, 1 through 1, 2. So what I want to do is I want to look at 2 digits at a time. So my very first 2-digit number would be 0, 5. So I'm going to write over here 0, 5 is my first number. So what I want to think about is, does that match up? Does that work for my sample? Yep, because I said everybody 0, 1 through 0, 12. So 0, 5 would be my very first person in my sample. To get my next person, so I use 0, 5. My next numbers would be 0, 0. Now I said 0, 1 through 12, so 0, 0 does not fit in there. So all I would need to do there then is I'm going to end up not using 0, 0. Let's make that one red. So we're not using that one. So if I keep going then, so 0, 0 were my next two numbers. So I'm just looking at two numbers at a time. The next one would give me 7 and 1, so 71. 71 also does not fit inside my range, so I'm going to make that one red here. So on your papers, you can just cross them out. I like to circle the one that does work as well. All right, so I'm going to keep going. So I had 71. Next number would be 66, then 32, then 81, 19, 41, 48. So these are all things that are outside of my range. So I'm going to keep looking here. So 73 would be next. And then I get 0, 4, which does fit inside of what I was looking at because 0, 4 falls between 0, 1, and 12. So my sample would be 0, 5 and 0, 4. So we want to think about who that would be. So 0, 4 would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So my sample is going to be Finn because he's 0, 4. And Garrett because he's 0, 5. So in this one, it might be a little easier to put everybody's name on a piece of paper and put it in a hat, but you can see how if you were on a larger scale, if you had a big list of people and you were wanting to pick a bigger sample, how it would be a lot easier to do this method instead, or a little bit quicker. So let's look at a bigger example here. So there are 1,754 students at BMHS, and 2 students are going to be randomly selected to win $100 gift cards. So to do my SRS, I'm going to start by labeling. So I'm going to label each student alphabetically by last name. And since there's 4 digits here, because there's 1,754 students, my first number also has to be 4 digits. So I'm going to start with a 1, but I'm going to fill those zeros in until they match. So they both have to be 4 long. All right, and we're going to say using line 140 here. So if I look to line 140 in the back of my book, here it is. So I'm taking 4 numbers at a time now. So my first number is 1,297. That's the first one, and that does fit inside of my range. My next number, let's see, I need 4 digits at a time. So 5132. Which does not fit, so I'm going to keep looking. Next number would be 5813, still doesn't fit. Next one would be 0484, and that one does fit. So my sample would be whatever student number this is here, so let's make them purple. So those are my 2 people that are actually in my sample. So we don't want those ones. So those ones are out. So what I would do now is I would need to go to the master list of all students in the high school, and I would look up when they're organized alphabetically by last name, who is number 1,297 and who is number 484. And those would be my 2 that would be selected for my sample out of the whole school.